One note of correction in the bulletin. We're grateful for both our special music offerings today. One, Leo Schroeder, will play at the anthem during the offering, and then Praise Jam will offer an anthem during distribution of communion. And thanks to Leo and Praise Jam and Leo's entourage as well, which is always follows him when he's playing. So. He needs lots of bodyguards, I think. That's good. Grace and peace to all of us this day from the light, who is the life of all. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overtake it. Well, this morning I have an important public service announcement. As of 9:03 Central Time this morning, about 40 minutes ago, the days are getting longer. How about it, huh? This is as dark as it's going to get right now. And tomorrow, you will have 3 more seconds of daylight. Take a moment to bask in that. All right, tomorrow, okay? Remember, 3 seconds. It's not much, but it is something. I don't know about you, but for me, that makes a big difference. We made it here. The light shines in the darkness. John 1 is one of the most eloquent passages in the entire Bible, perhaps, laden with imagery. It's really more poetry than it is anything. Poetry kind of helps to connect the head and the heart. I remember the poem by Billy Collins called Introductory to Poetry, and how he talks about this imagery, like, I want you to water ski across the face of the poem, waving at the poem, at the author's name on the shore, but you want to tie the poem down and beat a confession out of it. So we'll try not to tie it down, and yet we must say something. John 1 begins with blatant plagiarism. In the beginning. Did you catch that? Plagiarizing Genesis 1. I don't know if it's actually plagiarism. You have to actually see this in the mind and in the vein of hip-hop artists who use samples, taking an old soul or R&B or funk track and reworking it into the new image of the new song. And so Genesis 1, what happened in Genesis 1? Well, and God said, and God said, and God said, and it was so, and it was so, and it was so, and it was good, and it was good, and it was good. And so John 1 is taking a sample of Genesis 1 and then saying, even from Genesis 1, what was the first thing God said? Let there be light. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and not without him, not one thing came into being. What has come into being when in him was life, and the life was the light. The light shines in the darkness. It's poetry. Can't really explain it. It has to be embodied. Wash over your heart and your mind. And you'll never really get it, perhaps, but then you kind of get it. So a couple things about light. I remember as a kid, we had a vacation spot on the Iron Range in Minnesota, and so one of the things we would do, especially if it was poor weather, was go to the Sudan mine. Anybody ever been to the Sudan mine? The Sudan mine is the first iron ore mine in Minnesota. It started in 1884, and this is not an open pit line. This was a shaft mine, and so they dug down into the ground and then dug horizontal shafts to iron out, to get the iron out. And they made it down almost a half a mile into the ground. And then the state of Minnesota turned this into a state park, so you can ride the elevator shaft the shaft elevator all the way down to the bottom floor, the last floor where they were. And then you get on like a little trolley or a little train, like the old things that just are on the rail, and you have your miner's hat and light on, and there's a tour guide, and you go into the bowels of the mine. And one of the things I remember we did it a couple times as a kid, is we would get into the big open place, the last place where they had carved out the iron, and there were lights on, of course, and then they say, we're going to turn off the lights. And they said, because we're going to have you experience what it's like to actually have total darkness. There was absolutely no light whatsoever. And so they would turn off the lights. And you could go like this, and you couldn't see a finger. And they mentioned that you could stay there for days, and your eyes literally could not adjust. You still wouldn't see anything. Then they would turn the lights back on. To this day, I'm like, what if the lights didn't go back on? Here are 20 tourists down there, and like, oh my goodness gracious. What had come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. I did some research on how we see light. Our eyes have cones and rods. Some of you know this. I learned this week that the cones in our eyes, they are the ones that sense color and detail. They'll start to adjust pretty quick. A couple minutes, you can start seeing in the dark if there's a little light. Rods will take over half an hour. And so I didn't realize this. So your vision is adjusting over the course of over 30 minutes if you turn out the lights. The light shines in the darkness. The darkness did not overtake it. In the psalm, it talks about watchers who are keeping watch in the night. And did you notice that's not a typo when the psalm repeats that phrase, more than those who watch for the morning? And just in case you didn't get it, more than those who watch for the morning. I think we yearn for light. For the light that is illuminating our space, the physical reality of light, but also the light that enlightens our heart, our minds. And the life was the light of all people. This beautiful poem says that the life of Jesus brings light to us, opens us up to who God is, reveals who God is, shows us where to go or where we're going. It's full of grace and truth. And at the same time in the psalm it says we still wait. Another image that stuck with me this last week was a video from our city. Many of us are mindful of the federal raids that have been taking place. One video I saw was watching only a couple federal agents in a location, and there were protesters around blowing whistles, and on this particular day, throwing snowballs. Minnesotans. The federal agent had a middle-aged woman handcuffed to him, and she was on the ground on her back. And as he tried to protect himself and get away from the onslaught of snow, he was dragging her across the Minneapolis street, covered in sloppy slush and snow. I thought, where is the light? Where's the light there? Where was the light in neighbors throwing snowballs or blowing whistles? Where's the light in the agent dragging the person helplessly? Where was the light in the person? What was being enlightened? Perhaps most powerfully, the light was in the woman covered in grimy street slush. The first chapter of John proclaims the light, and we follow where that light, and we have to ask, how far will that light go? Goes to that situation. And what blindness is there where God's light is working to be revealed in the people surrounding, in the power that be, in domination, in the helpless being dragged? The true light which enlightens everyone was coming into the world. What is being enlightened? One of our good neighbors this week, wonderfully honest and humble, confessed to me that sometimes you don't know what to say or do in regard to faith or life or in the daily conversations with people. Even if you're a faithful person, how do you talk about Jesus? I said, you know what? I feel you. Even as a pastor, I can relate to that. I say a lot about Jesus, but mostly because it's my job. I've been called to be responsible for it. Without that, I would share a lot less. But something I've been holding to this week, and which may be a comfort for all of us, related back to being in the mind, and then hearing and thinking about how our eyes adjust, and thinking about tomorrow, there will just be 3 more seconds. And holding on to that. A lovely part of the Gospel of John is there are a number of instances where the light of Jesus dawns on people gradually. It's like their eyes have to adjust a little bit and continue adjusting. In chapter 1, Andrew will go to his buddy Nathaniel and say, hey, we found the Savior. And Nathaniel will say, can anything good really come from Nazareth? I hear that's where he's from. It's like me and my thoughts on Wisconsin. Don't tell anybody. Sorry. I'm joking, of course. But Nicodemus comes and says, tell me what you're really about. Not really sure, and later on, Nicodemus will be at the crucifixion. Or the woman at the well who will say to Jesus, why are you, a Jewish man, asking something of me, a Samaritan woman? And as the conversation continues, the light continues to dawn on her, and she ends up being one of the first people to go and proclaim to others who Jesus is. Or Peter and the other guys who are following along, Peter who denies Jesus, and when he gets to the empty tomb, runs away. And then they're locked up even after hearing that Jesus is raised from the dead. And then Peter, even later, is fishing with the guys. And Jesus shows up and finally says, peace be with you, Peter. I've got a job for you. Feed my sheep. Tend my lambs. Feed my sheep. Do you love me? Thinking about all of that, perhaps the hope and the promise for us. The light shines in the darkness, and it keeps on shining. Through him we receive grace, not only grace, but grace, did you hear it? Grace upon grace. 3 more seconds. By the end of January, it'll be like 3 more minutes. Not much, but it keeps shining. And maybe the prayer today, in the situations that we find ourselves in our hearts and our minds, in our own lives, as a church together, as a community, as we see what's going on, as we see blindness or darkness to each other and how we treat one another, the prayer is that our eyes keep adjusting, that our hearts keep soaking it in. And today, perhaps take comfort in this promise. From the fullness of the true light, you receive grace upon grace. Wherever you are, however much light you feel like you're holding, 3 more seconds today. 3 more seconds. And we remember and pray and hope that the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness will not overcome it. Amen.